Parole is called back to order. The time is 1:02. Our next case is Mr. Michael Nelson. Mr. Nelson, would you please give us your full name and DOC number?
Yes, sir. It's Michael Nelson, 309912.
Mr. Nelson, let me explain our process to you. I'm going to read some information into the record. Then we're going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we'll allow those persons who wish to have input to say their piece. And after that, we'll give you an opportunity to say whatever you'd like before your lawyer closes out, and we'll vote. Understand our procedure?
Yes, sir.
This is the matter of Michael S. Nelson, DOC number 309912, date of birth December the 10th of 1968. He is a fourth felony offender. He does not earn good time. He is serving a life sentence after having been adjudicated a habitual offender on a simple burglary charge, being sentenced on December the 10th of 2009. Is that all accurate, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nelson, here speaking on your behalf is Mr. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project, Ms. Caitlin Newswanger with the Innocence Project of New Orleans, Ms. Virginia White with the Innocence Project of New Orleans, your aunt Barbara Williams, who I believe is there with you in the at the institution, your cousin, Dr. I can't read the first name, but the last name is Williams. Caitlin, and Zach Nelson, and Mary Oxner are there with you. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Your case was assigned to me, Mr. Nelson, so I'll begin our interview process. Okay, Mr. Nelson, how old are you, sir?
Could you say again?
How old are you?
I'm 54 years old, sir.
Can you hear me okay, or is it? Do you have hearing issues?
Yes, sir. I'm a little hard of hearing.
Okay, well, I talk pretty loud. I don't know how well it's going to come through that microphone, but
I can hear you, though.
Okay, good. How long have you been in prison on these charges?
14 and a half years, sir.
Let's talk a little bit, Mr. Nelson, about yourself. How much education do you have?
I have a BA degree in ministry from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary.
Let me back up. Prior to coming to prison, what was your educational background?
I had a GED.
And did you work before you came to prison?
Yes, sir, I did.
What kind of work did you do?
I did tree removal work, dangerous tree removal work, climbing trees, and I worked at the port of New Orleans as a clerk.
Tell me a little bit about your family, your children.
Yes, sir, I have two sons.
How old are your sons?
30 and 33.
In looking at your record, you've got 20 plus arrests. And just looking at you on paper, appears to me that you've been a lifetime burglar and a thief. Is that fair to say?
Before my incarceration, sir, that is correct.
Let's talk a little bit about that. What was going on in your life that you were pulling all of these crimes? And it's not only in Louisiana, but Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia. Tell me what was happening with you. Why all the crime?
I think the root cause was my drug addiction, which always triggered my criminal behavior, but it was also the negative thinking patterns that I was, the fast money ideas and stuff like that, being immature. But since my incarceration, I've taken steps to correct that.
And we're going to talk about that. Let's talk first about who you were before you came to prison. Then we'll talk about who you are now. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about your drugs. When did you start using drugs?
Early age, sir. 8 years old, started smoking marijuana, and it progressed from there.
And from marijuana, what did you go to?
I would say pharmaceutical pills, cocaine, smoke crack cocaine.
Let's talk about
it.
How does an 8-year-old start smoking marijuana? What were the circumstances?
I was living in Houston, Texas. I had 3 older half brothers that were 15, 12, and 10 years older than me. I was hanging out with teenagers that were older than me. And so they were smoking weed, and I just was influenced by that. And that's where I started my shoplifting at an early age, and which progressed as well.
How long did you smoke? How often were you smoking marijuana as a young boy, 8 years old? How did you progress? Explain to me what you did, how long you did marijuana, then you moved on to whatever you moved on to.
Yes,
Kind
sir.
of bring me up to date on your drug use up until the time you came to prison.
Smoked weed every chance I could from the time I was 8 years old until basically when I was arrested on this charge in 2008. I've been sober 14 and a half years.
And what drugs did you move to? Cocaine? Did you do cocaine?
Yes, sir. From the weed, I transitioned to the pills and the alcohol. 18, 19, 20 years old. Had a tree removal business. The stress from that, being uneducated, turning to drugs rather than God, to deal with the life stressors at that time. Didn't have a mentor help to turn to.
What
So
drugs were you using? We're gonna get to all of that. I'm just interested right now in your drug use. You used cocaine. How often did you use cocaine and how long?
I used it for about 2 years straight, 94, 96. Those 2 years right there were crack cocaine years.
Heroin?
I didn't do heroin until 1998. I did a little bit then. I saw doctor shopping in 98. That's when I got on the opioids in 98. And then I was incarcerated from 2000 to 2007. And then when I got out, I got in a car wreck. And that's when the opioid addiction cycle started again, doctor shopping, and my addiction skyrocketed from there. And it led to this.
Tell me about this last burglary that caused you to get arrested, put in prison, be adjudicated a habitual offender, and get a life sentence. Tell me what was happening on that day.
Sure. On October 27th, 2008, I broke into a vehicle at North Shore Medical Center that belonged to Shannon Shea in Slidell, Louisiana. And to this day, I still feel shame about that. And I deeply apologize to her for victimizing her and her property. But that's what happened. That's why I'm here.
Well, didn't they find you lying on the ground? What was that offense? Tell me where they found you stealing some wire or something. You don't remember that?
No, I was convicted of breaking into a car and stealing a bag out of an SUV at North Shore Medical Center
Okay.
on this instant offense, sir.
Hey, I gotta ask, what did you get out of that car?
It was actually an empty lunch bag.
So what drugs were you on when you were doing this?
I was on opioids at the time.
And how often were you doing it?
I was addicted. I was using heroin at the time too. So every day.
Prior to coming to prison this last time, had you ever had any treatment, drug treatment, inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, any sort of treatment whatsoever for your drug addiction?
I had detoxed for a day or two and then I checked out. Never had no treatment prior to this incarceration.
Now, the time that you were in prison, I think you said from 2000 to 2007, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Where were you in prison at?
I was at Hunts. I was at LaSalle Correctional Center, Concordia Correctional Center, WCI, Beauregard, Fort Wade, Winfield, and DCI.
Were you able to take any kind of programs there?
Not that I can recall. I took 100 hours at DCI at the tail end of my sentence there, and but I don't remember taking any drug intensive substance abuse treatment class.
Now, when you got out, you said you got in an automobile accident, you went back to drugs. How long had you been out before you got in the automobile?
About 3 or 4 months, sir.
Were you sober during those 3 or 4 months?
No, sir, I was not.
So you were still using, as soon as you got out, you went back to using drugs.
Yes, sir, I did.
So now let's talk about what you've done while you've been in prison this time. I know you're in the STAR program, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. What programs have you taken besides the STAR program having to do with substance abuse that sort of got you on the track?
Yes, sir. I completed the Living in Balance Part 1 and 2. I completed Celebrate Recovery. And I took the 12-stepping program with Sober Group 3 times. And I've been in STAR drug program for over a year. Those are the programs that I've taken to address my substance abuse issues.
Now, I have received the letters from the STAR program and how well you're doing and all of the things that you've accomplished there. And you've been in that program for a year now. At some point, I assume, just to give you a little background about me, for 14 years, I was a drug court judge. So I've got a little bit of familiarity with drug addiction and that sort of thing. Not a lot, but somewhat. At what point did the light come on for you?
The light for me came on when I was a free man last time, and when my addictions, I got caught back in that addiction cycle again, and it started progressing out of control, and it triggered my criminal behavior. And I was just tired of that lifestyle. I knew that it was going to lead back to incarceration, but I just didn't know how to ask for help at that time. And I was pretty much at the end of myself. I was ripe and ready for repentance. And when I was arrested on this burglary, that's what I did. I embraced Jesus as Savior for my sin. And I made a promise to myself that on this incarceration, I was going to do everything I could to become a better person through faith, education, life skill programs, and intensive substance abuse training. That's pretty much what I've done, sir.
So tell me about some of the programs that you've taken and have benefited you.
I've completed the Bible College. I completed the Baton Rouge Community College Horticulture Technical program with the landscape technician certification as well. I completed 8 Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry licenses that I could potentially activate upon my release. And I also completed life skill classes such as 100 hours, anger management, thinking for a change, inside out dad. And then while doing that, I took as many substance abuse classes as I could, Celebrate Recovery, Living in Balance Part 1 and Part 2. I was fortunate enough to get in the STAR drug program. I've taken about 7 classes, completed those.
Tell me how you got into the STAR program. What motivated you, or what got you into that program?
A friend of mine named Justin Hoover that I'd been mentoring down the walk for years. The board had recommended him go into the STAR drug program. And when he got in the program, he submitted my name and they accepted me into the program.
Tell me what your transition plan will be if you're granted parole. Where will you live? I know the Innocence Project is working with you. I assume you'll be working with them. Where will you live when you get out?
I will go to the parole project and I will be under their structure there. And the Innocent Project is going to work with me on a long-term plan. And your disciplinary record, I think you've had 6 write-ups the whole time you've been there, is it right? Since I've been at Angola, I had 1 write-up, but it was expunged. I had 6 write-ups on a prior incarceration. Prior incarceration, so you haven't had any write-ups on this incarceration? No, sir. Tell me in your own words, and I know you're going to be working with the Parole Project, and I know you're going to be working with the Innocence Project. Tell me what your plan is to stay sober. My plan to stay sober is to keep doing what I've been doing for the last 14 and a half years, is turn to God, follow his lead. I've learned how to apply the gospel to my life, not only for salvation, but sanctification. And with that, church, get a good spiritual advisor, pastor, get plugged into piggyback with different ministries, share my strength, hope, story with others to encourage them, invite them in the same grace that I've experienced, and go to AA, NA, try to get some sponsors there that I can turn to for guidance when life shows up.
The STAR program also incorporates medical assistance. Is that something you've discussed with them at all? Are you interested in getting a shot or getting medical treatment to maintain your sobriety?
Yes, sir. I'm on the naltrexone. I've been on it about 10 months now, and I'm supposed to start the Vivitrol if I'm granted parole.
And that's something that you plan on continuing to do for
Yes, sir.
whatever time you need to?
Yes, sir.
Morton, what can you tell us about Mr. Nelson?
I don't have anything to add. I think y'all covered everything, and Granny, I wish you the best of luck out there.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Myers, Mr. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. Mr. Nelson presents a little bit of a different case for us. He is a lifer under and eligible for parole under Act 122, which we were significantly involved in that process. While he's in this incarceration, he's got just at 15 years. His parole eligibility date is in November. Parole Project is accepting Mr. Nelson into our program. We want to be able to offer him the benefit of our services, particularly with our social worker, evaluating him, working with IPNO on his long-term plan, collaborating with them, providing him with the transition services that he needs, connecting him to the AA, to the services, to his medical services, and allowing him to essentially have that decompression time while our program provides him with the tools that he'll need on this transition. 15 years is not normal as far as our program goes, but since he does have a life sentence, his needs are very similar to our clients, to every other client. And we know that the services and the programs that we have, and particularly the peer mentorship, will benefit him. And again, we've been working with his family. We'll collaborate with IPNO on his release should he get granted today in November. And we want to support Mr. Nelson through his transition.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Virginia White.
Yes, sorry. So we work closely with Mr. Nelson to develop a plan that fits his needs and his goals. So each reentry plan that we develop is specific to each client, individualized to the concerns and the needs based on their assessment. And as a result, we've identified additional resources and direct services for Mr. Nelson to create a strong safety net. His residential plan is in St. Tammany, and this will be helpful because he'll also be receiving direct support with the Louisiana Prisoner Reentry Initiative. And through this local support, as Mr. Kerry has already explained, he'll have an intense support where he's at. Mr. Nelson is committed to his recovery. He's addressed the shame, the guilt. He's went through acceptance and acknowledgments of his actions and how it has had an impact on his behavior. He's come from nearly a lifetime of addiction. So to maintain sobriety, he's gained a whole new perspective on life. He's made exceptional progress through attending different programs, discussing relapse prevention, criminal and addictive thinking, and release and reintegration. So we'll stay in close contact to make sure we have intense communication and monitoring any changes that need to be made to his medical treatment, and stay on top of those concerns and to anticipate any changes. He plans to live in Pearl River with his friend Dave Border, where he will also be able to have immediate employment working for his tree removal company. And he's already explained that he has prior experience with this. We're excited about the relationships that he has been able to maintain with his sons and with his aunt throughout his incarceration. And we definitely look forward to their reunion if he's granted a release. Overall, we're confident between Mr. Nelson working with us and other support agencies in his area and his attendance to NA meetings and the services he'll receive and support from family, that he'll be able to successfully rebuild his life and comply with the conditions of the release. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, hear from his aunt, Ms. Barbara Williams. Ms. Williams, or
Stay right there, Ms. Ball. You don't have to move. They can hear you.
I've known, we've always known him as Scotty, his nickname, but Michael Nelson, all of his life. He's lost his father, he's lost his mother, who's my sister, and he's lost his sister since he's been incarcerated. And they were all hoping for the day when he could re-enter life in the changes he's made since he's been here at Angola. And he was always a loving boy when he was coming up, and he played with my children. I think that you see that in my letter. And so I've known him all of his life, and I'm so thankful for the changes that he's made here. And I've been in close contact with him through the phone and different things. I haven't visited here because it's a long way for me to come, but I would have come more if I could have. But he has made such a change from the life that he had before. And even as a little boy, when he made some bad choices with his older half brothers, he struggled, but he has really. I'm so proud of him, and I'm asking you to give him a chance, because he has really changed his whole life in these years he's been here. And thank you.
thank you very much for your comments, ma'am. Mr. Nelson, is there anything you'd like to say before we turn it over to Ms. Newswine?
Yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank this board for this opportunity to apologize to my victim, Shannon Shea, and also the previous victims referenced to my prior convictions. To this day, I still feel shame and remorse for victimizing them and their property. It should have never happened, and I deeply apologize to them. Also, I'd like to apologize to my family, my community, and to law enforcement for the ripple effect that my past criminal behaviors had on them as well. Since my incarceration, I've taken numerous steps to become a better person and fix myself through faith, education, life skill programs, and intensive substance abuse treatment. And I know that if I'm allowed this opportunity to make parole, that I will be a law-abiding, productive citizen, because I know how important it is to follow the rules of society. I plan on getting plugged into a good church and to a good support system with AA and NA, with the Innocent Project to help me develop a plan for the future. And it is my prayer that this board would just allow me this opportunity to return to society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Newswine, would you like to wrap it up for us, please?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Newswanger. I'm a staff attorney with the Unjust Punishment Project and Innocence Project New Orleans. I just wanted to start off by kind of clarifying some of the residence plan for Mr. Nelson. I'm sure you might be a little confused. So there seems to have been some miscommunication. For circumstances beyond Mr. Nelson's control, we thought he was going to go to Baton Rouge to live at a sober living home, and then that changed at the last minute due to a conflict. And we are delighted that Mr. Nelson is going to transition to the Louisiana Parole Project home so he can get stable and we can help him with his long-term plan to eventually move and be independent and closer to his son. So now that that's cleared up, I also just want to add that I'm sure you can see Mr. Nelson's transformation has been extraordinary, from his lack of write-ups to his over 40 certificates and accomplishments. And I think that you can see that he speaks with genuine humility about his addiction and about his transformation. And he's tried to use this transformation to help others, both through his inmate ministry work and as a reentry mentor, which you have seen in the letters that he has provided or that we provided. He's seen as a father figure, somebody who is respected. They get the same mic every day, somebody with integrity. I mean, that says a lot. And when Mr. Nelson speaks about his recovery and what he plans to do to stay sober and stay clean, he speaks with detail. He talks about the tools that he's going to use from the STAR program, how he's going to be able to confront negative thinking and distorted thoughts. And he's able to actually be specific about what his negative thinking and distorted thoughts were before his incarceration and how he has the cognitive tools to confront those. And in light of Mr. Nelson's extraordinary prison record, his support system that you can see here and from the Parole Project and from our client services with Dr. Virginia White, we just respectfully request that you would grant Mr. Nelson's parole today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Red book. Yes. Mr. Nelson, you know, I see the difference, obviously, in who you are as you sit here today than who you were when you came into prison. I think I mentioned to you earlier that I was a drug court judge for 14 years. Very often at our graduations, I would tell candidates for graduation, you know, when you came in, you had a lot of problems. You go back out there, those problems are still there. You've changed, but the world hasn't changed. All of those things out there that caused you to do what you do, they're still there. They're still constant. So it's a lifelong fight that you have on your hands. And it sounds like you equipped yourself to be able to do that. You've got a very good prison record this time when you come in. You've taken some excellent programs. You really seem to have a grasp on what your disease is and how to be able to deal with your addiction and how to maintain your sobriety. There was an excellent letter in there from the person who runs the STAR program, what you've done and how you've done it. Your risk is low. Your disciplinary record has been excellent while you've been in there. Your interview today was very good. I do believe that you're a changed person. I do believe that you're a drug addict. I do believe that there are going to be problems around a lot of corners. So you need to maintain your sobriety, maintain the attitude that you've had for the last probably 6, 7, 8 years while you've been in prison. So having said all of those things, my vote today would be to grant your parole to the Louisiana Parole Project, to follow with the following conditions, that you follow all the recommendations of the STAR program, including reporting back to them for their feedback in those things. Take the medication as they advise you to do. Also, work with the Innocence Project of New Orleans. They're going to work with you as well. I want you to attend 3 AA meetings per week, curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And follow all the rules of the Louisiana Parole Project. I'm one of 3 votes, and that's my vote. So, Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. First of all, Mr. Nelson, you had a great interview. You were truthful. You were just a great interview. And that's what I look for in an individual who is stable, who is just very truthful when he's speaking to the panel. In accordance with the provisions of Act 122, which gives you parole eligibility. I look for a couple of things. I look for good conduct record, and you have a good conduct record. You have no disciplinary write-ups, this incarceration. I look for good programming. You have excellent programming in the area of substance abuse, which was your problem and the cause of all of your other crimes. And you completed Living in Balance, Celebrate Recovery, and you've done very well in the STAR program. You have an excellent transition plan with the Louisiana Parole Project and then to Pearl River, Louisiana. Check my notes. And you have a good, let me get together. Basically, your disciplinary conduct, your transition plan, your program, and the last thing I want to mention, your family support. Your aunt's statement was very impressive. I was moved by her statement. He called you a loving boy, and she's been with you all of your life. So based on everything I've just articulated, I'm going to grant your early release. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Freeman?
Okay, I agree with everything my colleagues have said. I'm not gonna repeat them. The one thing I will tell you is, as I told the guy before you, you're backing life. Okay. You mess up again, you come before a board and they're gonna see that you were revoked while on parole. And I don't think you'll get another opportunity like this. So take advantage of it. Listen to the people at the Parole Project, the Innocent Project, and call when you need help. If you can't get your sponsors, call your probation.
Yes, sir.
Vote is also the grant.
Mr. Scott, Mr. Nelson, you have received three votes to grant your parole under conditions that we've outlined. So good luck to you.
Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Absolutely. Can you think of a better, more deserving case? Is this connected? I don't think it is. Ah, it's not. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. All right. That was quite annoying. You know, you do a whole hearing and then your microphone decides to bug out on you. But what I said was congratulations. Congratulations. Can you think of a more deserving case than this? This, I will salute you, Mr. Kerry Myers of the Parole Project, because this is something that is beautiful. And to have the Innocence Project, which I am just the biggest fan of, to be involved too, is quite unique. I don't know if we've seen both Innocence Project and Parole Project involved with an inmate. Can you imagine? And we'll go over his court record, which has and also a little bit of the Parole Project, but I just want to first unpack this a little bit. Can you imagine getting a life sentence? This wasn't given in 1979, in 1986, in 1994. No, this was handed down in 2009. can you imagine? We live in this great country, America, but would you believe that a man would get a life sentence for the crime he committed at the time for stealing an empty lunch bag? Because he had an addiction? Because he had an addiction that, let's be real, was driven through greed from pharmaceutical companies? You heard what he was doing. He was doctor shopping, which was a huge, which people would do. You would go doctor to doctor and fill prescription after prescription. That's what you would do. It was a money-making machine. And a judge gave him life. Life. Throw away the key. Bury him under the jail, as they say. Meanwhile, we see people who harm children and get 2 years probation, house arrest. Then they do it again and they get another 2 years and then a slap on the wrist. Then maybe they'll get like 10 years. But this guy in 2009, lock him up for life? What? That's nuts. It blows your mind. How is this possible? This is something you would think you would see in maybe like, I don't know. You'd expect to hear about it in China or something. The man was breaking into a car, so they locked him up for life. Yes, I get he was an habitual offender. But he never hurt any children. He never took someone's life. He wasn't walking around carrying weapons. He broke into a car because of his addiction. Can you imagine a judge feeling great about doing that? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. In 2009, it was a tough time, 2009. We were coming out. I wouldn't even say coming out of. We're in the heart of it's the Great Recession. People are struggling. You can't get work. The addiction is just full rage on. Unbelievable. It's hard to wrap one's mind around it. But, I got to start giving a little more love to the Parole Project, because this is, they had a lot to do with passing this legislation, Act 122. And, it's something that is worth keeping in mind. Act 122, it really was meant to do things like this, beautiful things like this. And there are people that fall into the act that we get upset about, that they're getting a chance at parole. And that it really, you say, is unfair to families that they have to go up and show. But there's, I guess, I can't zoom in, but it was initiated to fight parole equity in Louisiana for the passage of the Advocate and Baton Rouge, called one of the most significant pieces of legislation. It was passed in 2021, Act 122. I'll put this link in the description. It made hundreds of people eligible. People who've been shut out by the 1997 Truth in Sentencing Law. Now, here was this is kind of interesting. So October 27, 2008. Oh, this is when the crime, this was in the heart of the Great Recession. I was working in the time of the Great Recession. I'm maybe not as young as I look. And I remember I was working in a bad city, working with foreclosed homes, and I saw the destruction and the pain and the chaos. And I was dealing with a lot of, we all were. I do remember going through my coin jar to put some gas in the car. You know, we all had those moments. It was tough. It was just tough. It was a tough time. And getting pain meds was real easy. So October 27th, Sharon Shea, who was his victim, went to a 4 p.m. medical appointment. You know, so she had a 2003 Honda CRV with a car alarm. Think about that. And I feel for her, man. You go to it's a doctor's appointment, you just want to get in and out. And she came, you know, she brought a bag containing her lunch and other items in the vehicle. When she returned, she saw that the passenger door had been damaged. Man, which sucks. I've had my cars broken into before, and it sucks. You don't want to go through insurance. It's just, but you know, she spent $210 to repair damage. So not the end of the world, actually, but still, it sucks. And she testified that she did not give the defendant permission to break into the car. I think the worst part out of all this, I can't speak for her, but for me, if it was me, it would have been having to go to court and testify, having to take that time of my day to go to court and testify against this dude that I didn't give him permission to go into my car. So also on December 27th, David, who was a witness, he said that he saw a man pull his arm out of the broken window of the Honda SUV, get into another vehicle and drive away with a female passenger. He memorized the license plate. That's pretty impressive. So he's looking out the window. He sees that he memorizes a license plate. He calls it in, and then little does he know, he now has to show up to court and testify. He might regret doing that in the future. And then there's Candy Thomas, who is brought up. So she was like the girlfriend of the defendant. They were traveling together. It was her car. So she was going to her doctor's appointment, probably also doctor shopping. And the defendant had a long screwdriver and white gloves in the vehicle. Thomas indicated Thomas is Candy. So his girlfriend Candy indicated that the defendant used the gloves for tree work. Now, I thought that part was funny because part of his goal is to go work in tree removal, and this was part of his defense. So approximately 5 days per month. Following Thomas's appointment, she returned to the defendant's vehicle and argued with him because the defendant was attempting to break into the vehicle. So she said she would just wanted the defendant to take her home. So if she's testifying against him, basically, she's like, they basically said, we're going to get you. They probably told her, we're going to get you as a accomplice, or we'll just as also doing the crime. And they had her testify against him. That sucks, right? So, and she was saying that she didn't want anything to do with it. And maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't, who knows? But she testified against him, all right. After breaking into the side window of a vehicle, the defendant returned the vehicle to his vehicle and Thomas with a makeup bag containing a lunch. The famous bag. When he said that, when they asked him what was in the bag, it was an empty bag. He got a life sentence for stealing a makeup bag with lunch. He put his long screwdriver on the floorboard. The defendant subsequently drove off and threw the bag out the window. Candy had a college degree in secondary education, had attended LPN school, and then worked in nursing home with the health industry. Wow, his girlfriend, had a lot of stuff going for her. She had been diagnosed schizophrenia with paranoid, manic, and delusional episodes. So this is the court now trying to discredit her. They're saying, whoa, she's schizophrenic, paranoid, manic, and delusional. She indicated her illnesses were manageable, however, so now she had to get dragged to court. So these are things that we don't see. It's like, yeah, he broke into something, but then now they're dragging all these people into court. They're making all these people go through these things. And that's part of the crime, I guess. And that's part of maybe why they throw the book at him, right? You're going to go to court. Let me show you. Thomas conceded. So Candy conceded she had seizures that result in memory lapses, before, during, and sometimes after. She admitted that she did have a seizure on the morning of October 27th, but explained that her seizures had finished prior to the argument she had with the defendant about him breaking into cars. She testified that she remembered everything about to which she testified. Before the time of the trial, the defendant had written her letters and called her, encouraging her not to testify, or to claim that she didn't remember. So he's calling her from jail and saying, "Don't testify against me, babe." And she's like, "No way, dude. You're on your own." Then this is the motion for mistrial. They're saying that the state played a DVD of the defendant's statement, which included his suggested evidence of other crimes. So they're saying, you can't bring up other crimes. That should be a mistrial. But basically, it was it. Like this, you go and look at this case, and this is what gave him a life sentence. He went to court. The state said, "You're not going to take a plea deal." And we don't know. Maybe he wasn't offered a plea deal. I don't, I'm sure you would think he was. But it's as if this is any lesson, you don't go to court, man, because he is lucky. He is lucky that the state passed Act 122 that gave him a chance of parole. He'll be home for Christmas, people. But if this didn't happen, he would have died in prison. Think about that. Blows my mind. I thought there was one part that he was going to flunk his questions in his hearing when he said, "What's your plan to stay sober?" And he said, "God, churches, pastor, blah, blah, blah," going on and on and on. I'm like, oh no, they're not gonna. And then he finishes it off and go to AA and NA and find a sponsor. And I'm like, all right, you hit it out of the park, sir. If there's what was interesting, and I guess you can't hold it against him, but his two sons, 30 and 33, they weren't there, I don't think, and that's sad. I don't think they were there, right? Unless they were behind him. I recall him saying he has sons, but I don't think they were there. But I was going to say, it's great that at least he but he spent 14 and a half years in prison, which is, in that case, I'd argue it was probably the best thing, one of the best thing, maybe the best thing that happened to him. He was just going down a really bad road, and he might have been on the streets, like a lot of people with unalived from the fentanyl. All right, I don't want to say it because who knows what will happen to this channel, but I said it. Probably just demonetize this entire thing for saying that too. But this might have saved his life. But it's not okay when he would have been locked up without the chance of parole, which is crazy. I get, throw the book at him, you took him to trial, but you could have given him 20-year sentence. That would have been substantial. It's also interesting that he's starting the process for the shot. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's a shot you can take that basically makes it impossible for you to get intoxicated. And it's, I think, experimental, and they don't but people who take that, they're serious about the sobriety. And I guess when you have your life on the line, you're going to do whatever you need to do to get it. But he did mention doing that shot. But man, I'm happy about this result, of course, and I think we learned a lot on this hearing. And of course, I always love to hear your thoughts. But with that, I'll let you go.